The European Union, once a symbol of peace, stability, and unity. But today, more and more people are asking the same question. Is it falling apart? Sanctions that were meant to weaken Russia are now hurting us. Immigration that was supposed to unite Europe is tearing it apart. The dream of a united continent is cracking under pressure. And for the first time in decades, people are beginning to wonder if this project, the European Union, is slowly reaching its end. Stay with me. Today, we'll look at the facts, without the propaganda, without the headlines, and without political spin. Since 2022, the European Union has imposed more than 14 packages of sanctions on Russia. The goal was to cripple its economy. But we are paying the price, too. Energy prices in Europe have risen by 40%. Industry in Germany is slowing down, and Russia, it redirected its exports to China and India. Their GDP is growing. The Bruegel Institute estimates the EU's losses at over 1 trillion euros. Italy and France are increasingly saying, enough with the sanctions. Hungary is blocking new packages. Europe's unity is beginning to crack. The sanctions were meant to be a weapon, but they've become a burden. But in practice, it was European factories that began to shut down. There was a shortage of raw materials, parts, and cheap energy. In 2023, in Germany, thousands of industrial companies reduced production, or simply moved to Asia. In France, rising electricity bills led to the largest protests since the Yellow Vests movement. And in Poland, farmers and transport companies are warning fuel costs are eating up profits. India is buying cheap Russian oil. China is investing in its industry and technology. As a result, Moscow is earning more, and Europe, drowning in debt and inflation. It's the irony of history. The sanctions meant to break the opponent, broke our own market. With each passing month, more and more governments quietly ask, can we really afford this? The Italians speak of a course that's too harsh. The French call for a policy revision. And Orban's Hungary blocks more of Brussels' decisions. Some analysts compare the current situation to the collapse of the Soviet Union. From the outside, everything looks solid. But inside, cracks are beginning to appear. Cracks that, over time, can tear the whole structure apart. Do you think sanctions are a mistake? Write your opinion in the comments. Since 2015, millions of refugees have arrived in Europe. In 2024 alone, over 1 million asylum applications were submitted, according to Frontex. Germany spent 20 billion euros on integration. Poland and Hungary are building walls. The West says, we must help, it's our duty. The East replies, it's not our problem. The result? Europe is more divided than ever. Migrants are not to blame, but they reveal a deep conflict, sovereignty versus solidarity. And in the polls? Today, 40% of Europeans want a looser union. We can see it in everyday life. In Berlin or Paris, entire districts are changing their identity. In Rome or Athens, camps where people wait for months for a decision on asylum. And in the East, borders where tragedies unfold. Because every government wants to protect its own security. Politicians in Brussels talk about European solidarity. But what does that really mean in practice? For the Greeks, thousands of refugees on the islands. For the Germans, billions in social costs. For Poland, the obligation to take in people they don't want. This is not just a political debate. It's a question about the future of Europe's identity. Should Europe be a community of values, or just a collection of nations defending their own borders? In Germany, the AfD now has over 20% support. In France, Le Pen is getting closer to power. Italy, the Netherlands, Austria, nationalist parties are gaining strength. People feel that Brussels has lost touch with reality. Europe now faces a choice: either find a way to balance humanitarianism with security, or split into two camps, those who help and those who say, enough. And that could be the beginning of the end of a union that for decades seemed unbreakable. Because when someone can't pay their bills and hears on TV about billions more for migrant aid, anger is born. And it's that anger that now fuels the political earthquake across Europe. The European Union was created to unite nations that had fought each other for centuries. But today, instead of unity, we see more and more self-interest. Some say it's the end. Others, that it's just another test of survival, like the 2008 crisis or Brexit. The truth lies somewhere in between. The EU might not collapse physically, but it could stop being what it once was, a symbol of a shared future. So the question remains, can Europe still come together? Or is it already too late? Write in the comments what you think about it. Subscribe and turn on notifications.